Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Adam Talks, a podcast that takes an alternative look at retirement. This is Adam Bergman, founder and CEO of IRA Financial. If you want to learn more, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Just search IRA Financial. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adam Talks. I'm Adam Bergman, tax attorney, founder of IRA Financial. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about PPP, free money, and the self-employed. So this is a really interesting time. We all know the crazy year we've been living in. Obviously, the horrific impact COVID-19's had on the whole world. Over 500,000 people have lost their lives in the United States, and millions of people have lost their jobs. So health-wise, financially, we are struggling, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. One of the byproducts of COVID is stimulus and money and free money to lots and lots of people. And PPP number 2 is a interesting and exciting opportunity for the self-employed. Why? Because on March 3rd, 2021, new rules were promulgated as part of the interim final rule announcement, the SBA, and significantly enhanced the opportunities for the self-employed, 1099, sole proprietors, gig employees / contractors to get free money. You won't believe how good the new rules are. They're actually immensely helpful to many Schedule C taxpayers. So listen up. I will do my best to keep this simple, short, and to the point. The rules are somewhat complicated, so if you are listening and you think you may be eligible, talk to an advisor, accountant, call the SBA, talk to a banker. Don't miss out the opportunity. Unfortunately, you only have a few weeks because the deadline is March 31, 2021. So only a couple weeks left. But as I will get to, the definition of the gross versus net revenue is a game changer in terms of how much or who could potentially be eligible for the PPP. So as I mentioned, March 3rd, we got some new rules. And this is the crux of the new rules, okay? If you're a Schedule C taxpayer, 1099, independent contractor, you are now able to calculate how much you can get as part of the PPP based off your gross income on line 7 versus the net profits, which is on line 31. So obviously, just listening to the word gross versus net, you can imagine the opportunity to get more money because the calculation is based off the gross versus the net has magnified. So gross income basically for an individual means gross pay when it's on a paycheck, individual's total pay from the employer before taxes or before deductions. This includes income from all sources. It is not limited to income received in cash. It also includes property services received. So again, gross annual income is the amount of money a person earns in 1 year before taxes and includes income from all sources. For companies, gross income is interchangeable with gross margin or gross profit. Company's gross income is basically the revenue from all sources, simply minus the cost of goods sold. It does not include other deductions such as business expenses, right? All the other costs of doing business is not included in gross income. So you can imagine if you're looking to calculate how much you could potentially borrow, which will be forgiven, hopefully, by the government, and the calculation is based off gross versus net, as it was in the first PPP. This is huge, and the change will open the door for larger loans to the self-employed individuals, many of whom don't record much, if any, net profits. Right? A lot of 1099 sole proprietors, they kind of net out their income and expenses. Right? They may make $10,000, $20,000 doing some consulting, but they have other deductions, home office, computers, travel, whatever the case may be. And net on their Schedule C could be close to zero. So if you had to calculate how much you can borrow as part of this PPP, based off zero, clearly you're not going to be eligible for much PPP money. But if you're able to calculate that on the gross, how much you earn by driving for Uber or Lyft or teaching math or selling baseball cards on eBay without taking into account deductions other than cost of goods sold, it's a game changer, right? You're going to be able to borrow a lot more. So the second draw PPP loan, think about this. If the first loan has been received and used, $100,000 will remain the cap of the gross income report on line 7. So if you made $10 million and you got a first PPP loan, the most your calculation could be off gross revenue is $100,000. Still okay, because you can still potentially receive up to $20,833. Okay, so there's still money to be received free, because it will be forgiven so long as you use it for payroll and other expenses that I'll get to in a second. So again, game changer when you go from gross or from net to gross. Okay, so again, if you haven't got the first, well, get going. This is a great opportunity. Jump into the second. If you got the first, you still can get the second. Now, in order to get the second, the one key is you're going to have to show 25% reduction. Okay. So in the first PPP go round back in March as part of the CARES Act, you basically didn't have to show anything, right? You just basically had to have a business with some income or revenue, and you could potentially get the PPP. But as part of the PPP number 2, in order to mitigate fraud, they basically said that you had to have a 25% reduction in revenue for any quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. Okay, so that is the one difference between PPP 1. Now you do get to use that gross versus net calculation base, but you still need to be able to show that 25% reduction from 2020 to 2019. Okay, and the calculations differ somewhat if you have employees versus not. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that because your tax advisor can assist you. But the most important thing, if you take anything away from this podcast, is remember this, okay? Get free money, okay? If you are asking for a loan of less than $2 million, it's automatically assumed that you need it. So you don't even have to prove that you need it, okay? It's automatically assumed that you're going to need it. So now the question is, are you eligible? So you need to be able to show 25% reduction, 1 quarter, versus 20 versus 19, okay, which for most of us shouldn't be that hard considering first or second quarter, depending, usually second quarter, right? COVID kind of hit mid-March, second quarter took a big hit, April, May, June. So most people were able to show a 25% reduction from 2020 to 2019. If you are in that category, wake up. You got a couple weeks to go and grab yourself some free cash. There's nothing wrong to get it. Okay. The IRS is essentially saying if you need a loan of less than $2 million, you're assumed to need it. So don't feel bad. Okay. This is a byproduct of COVID. So remember, when you're doing this calculation, you're going to look at gross versus net, line 7 versus line 31, which should generally in almost all cases increase the amount that you can grab. Okay. And if you make more than 100,000, it's going to be capped. That gross amount will be capped at 100. Okay. And you basically, so step 1, basically I'm just going to give you a quick rundown here, just to understand how easy it is. And I'm going to just focus if you have no employees, because most gig workers, most 1099s, sole proprietors don't have any employees. So step 1, okay, basically from your 2019 or 2020 1040 Schedule C, you basically have the opportunity to elect either net profits, line 31, or gross income, line 7, okay? If the amount is over the 100, reduce it to 100. Remember, if both your net profits and gross income is 0 or less, you can't get a loan, clearly, right? Because if you have 0 revenue, 0 net, I mean, you're probably not a business, probably a hobby or a really early stage startup. And unfortunately, you're just not going to get the PPP. Now, step 2, calculate the average monthly net profit or gross income amount. You take that number and divide it by 12. Not that hard. My 10-year-old kid can do that. Step 3, you multiply the average monthly net profit or gross income from the step 2 by 2.5. And that amount cannot exceed $20,833, right? So you get your gross number, you then divide it by 12, okay? And then you multiply the average monthly gross income by 2.5. And that whatever that number is, that's what you're going to get. And it can't go above $20,833. Okay, so you have a couple weeks left to go out and get yourself some free money. Again, nothing to feel bad about doing it. You need to show 25% reduction in gross revenue from one quarter, from 1 year to another. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say Jen is a consultant at gross receipt from consulting, measured under the rules of 100K per quarter, second, third, and fourth quarter of 2019, and she only had 74,000 in second quarter of 2020. So she's got that 25% reduction, right? 75 would be 25. She's at 74. So now we know Jen can qualify for a second draw PPP, even if her volume in the third and fourth quarter was more than the 100 in the previous year, she still satisfies it. All you need to satisfy is one out of the 4 quarters, okay? Once you got one, you're good to go. So essentially, what that means for Jen is she can get the PPP loan based on that $20,833 maximum, and basically that's the amount she's going to get. So Jen, by listening to this podcast, will be able to pull $20,833. Now, I got 7,000 solo 401k clients. I have a lot of small business clients. Please, please, please. I always tell people, listen to my podcast, subscribe to the IRA Financial YouTube channel. I'm giving you nuggets here, okay? As a tax attorney, I spend my time learning, researching, educating myself about this stuff. I am doing you the favor, and I want to share it with you. And this is free money. It's not going to last forever. You got a few more weeks. You're going to look back at this in a few years and be like, oh my God, I could have got 20,000 bucks free money and used that to pay for what? So what do you have to use this money for? Okay. You basically need to use it for certain things. Number one, you basically should be using it to pay yourself. Okay. So you could use it to cover office lease, rent, or mortgage interest, provided that you had it before February 15, 2020. So if you have a home office, you can claim a portion of the expense, basically the percentage of your home that is used at a home office. If you collect any paid invoices, statements, lease agreements, or canceled checks, those obviously will help prove these expenses. Now, if you want to have your loan forgiven, you must spend 60% of the loan on payroll costs, that's paying yourself, not too shabby, and the remaining 40% on rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. Okay, so not bad. Basically, you're spending 100% of that on yourself and your business. Fair. You're getting 20,000, potentially up to 20,000. Free money. Can't just go to Disney. You gotta pay it yourself or spend it on your business. Super fair. Now, what happens if you already got a loan? Okay, and as I mentioned, sole proprietors and independent contractors who previously got a PPP loan before March 30th, 2021. Unfortunately, if you didn't hear this podcast, because the rules unfortunately just changed March 3rd, you cannot amend the application to go from net to gross. Kind of sucks. I wish they would do that, but you can't do it. Okay, you still can get the loan, but the loan amount you may be able to receive if you did it off net, which you were required to before March 3rd, 2021, you probably or most likely will receive a smaller PPP loan. So kind of sucky. I wish they would allow you to kind of go back, but that's just the way it is. So remember, this is a really good opportunity in a bad year. And if you are self-employed, usually if you're a gig worker, 1099, Schedule C, usually you think the rules aren't really geared to you and not in your favor. But in this case, they are. As long as you had a business that was operational before February 15, 2020, and you can show 25% reduction from one quarter to another from 20 to 19. Even if the other 3 were super profitable, as long as you went down at least 25% in one quarter, most probably the first or second quarter, because COVID hit in March, you are eligible. You have a couple weeks left. You have the ability to pull up to $20,833, fully forgiven, so long as you spend at least 60% on payroll, 40% on other business expenses like rent, mortgage. The rules are complex, so I definitely would recommend working with a tax professional. But the key takeaways here are independent contractors and sole proprietors who did not take initial PPP loans because they thought they had limited net income. They didn't think the amount was going to be big enough, right? If you only had, let's say, $800 in net income, but you had $18,000 of gross income, you may have not been able to apply for PPP1. You probably said, what's the point? I'm going to get, $20. What's the point? Now there's a big difference because of the change in law on March 3rd that changed the calculation base from net to gross. So please, please, please take a look at your books, talk to your tax professional, your accountant, your advisor, run some numbers. The calculation's not hard if you're Schedule C. You're looking at your gross, line 7 versus the line 31, the net. That's it. I mean, and then you basically, divide by 12, multiply 2.5, and you can't go over 20,833. Even if it's a few grand, who cares? Get it. Get the free money. Again, as long as you are going to pull less than $2 million out in a loan, the IRS assumes you need it. You don't have to prove necessity. So go get it. Okay. And all my 7,000 plus solo 401k clients, all my 20,000 plus IRA clients that are potentially self-employed, please, please just spend a few minutes and think about this. Don't want you to miss the opportunity to get literally free cash in your pocket. Okay. So there you go. Another good reason to subscribe to my podcast. This is one of 3 podcasts. I also do 2 other weekly podcasts called Ad Bits and Ad Mail. And also we generally drop 5 videos a week on our IRA Financial YouTube channel. So subscribe, enjoy, learn, hopefully. I don't put you to sleep, don't bore you, but this one's good because it actually can put free money into your pocket. So looks like we're getting towards the end of the COVID pandemic. Hopefully, lots of people are getting vaccinated and your cases are going down, deaths are going down, hospitalizations going down. So think we're getting there. Markets are strong, Bitcoin's up, real estate's up, even tokens, NFTs are up. People are spending $60 million on art. So I took my kid to a baseball card store this weekend. There was a line outside to buy basketball, baseball cards. So people are looking to buy bricks and also paper, right? They just want to buy something. So very interesting times. But again, you got a couple weeks to get some free cash from the government. So don't miss the chance. Anyway, stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks for listening and watching if you're doing so on YouTube. And talk to everyone again next week. Cheers. Be well.